Hello, I'm your host, Marcus Ruiz Evans, with a new update for you on the continuing conversation about secession and the option for states to pursue their own path towards nationhood. Last month, we've been talking to you about how Marjorie Taylor Greene, a sitting member of Congress and one of the first people since 1860, right before the American Civil War, or the war between the states, whatever term you like, talked about national divorce. And what was key was that she was a sitting member of Congress saying that maybe it's time for states to be able to secede. Fast forward to 1 month, literally yesterday, 1 month from when Marjorie Taylor Greene was talking about, now we have Ted Cruz, who's in the Senate. And he said maybe secession is possible for Texas. I want to point out that Marjorie Taylor Greene is in Congress, in the House, and she's from Georgia, and now we have a Texas legislator representing the other house. So for the first time since 1860, we have both houses, at least one member in each house, talking about the right of secession for states, multiple states that were part of the Confederacy in 1860 in the war against slavery. So we are looking at a historical point right now that the news really isn't covering. A lot of the news is saying, look at Ted Cruz, how silly he is for making this comment. A senator and a person who represents the other chamber of Congress, two active members in Congress, both houses, saying secession's possible and maybe we should look at it. That's happening right now. That's historic. Of course, the news isn't going to bring that up to you. That's why we make these podcasts for you. But there's a couple other things you should understand. We're going to go into Professor Monica Toff's discussion about the 3 stages that lead to actual civil war. Now, Professor Monica Toff writes for Foreign Affairs Magazine, the top policy magazine of foreign affairs scholars and international relations scholars anywhere in America. So when she is an expert in her field, she's writing in one of the top publications to cover these things, and she lays out, looking around the world, when there's a civil war, there are 3 conditions that must be met. And she talks about all 3 of those conditions and how close America is getting to them. Let's cover that right now because it directly relates to what you're seeing with Greene and Cruz and their statements, and not just the historical gravitas of that, but how it relates to possibly the dissolution of America in the next year. I'll show you everything. So Monica Toff wrote an article, How Civil Wars Start, 3 Factors Come into Play, and the United States Demonstrates Them All. Monica Toff for Foreign Affairs Magazine. Quote, all civil wars share at least 3 features in common. First, most civil wars follow some prior conflict, often a previous civil war, or more accurately, the highly skewed and politicized memory of a past civil war. Let's focus in on that. The highly skewed and politicized memory of a past civil war. We are seeing dissolution and division between people who are progressive and people who are conservative. The things that they're arguing about are the exact same things that we talked about 50 years ago during the Culture War of the 1960s and 1970s. So some people refer to the 1960s as a civil war, socially. Those same issues we're still talking about today and are still the pivotal issues ripping people apart. Abortion, family status, respect for LGBTQ rights, gun laws, climate change, regulation, etc. Past Civil War, same issues to today, a romanticized, politicized review or view of those things. You know, this is when America went bad, when women had more rights and more expression and minorities could speak more. And that's when things went bad and things went downhill for us. That's the topic. So you have to have a romanticized view of a previous Civil War conflict in order to be able to get your current Civil War going. America has that. Quote, the new belligerents, nor the issues, need not be exactly the same as the old. Most often, a leader supports a narrative about past glory or humiliation that suits their ideology, political ambitions, or even flows from simple historical ignorance. That's Donald Trump. So Donald Trump came in, he ran on Make America Great Again. America was not great, and he talked about how people were losing, and he was going to make them winners and winning. So here's a leader coming in and saying, things were better for you in the past, and it's all against you, and it's unfair, and you're losing, and things have been taken away from you, and I will restore this romanticized view of the past to you. That's the second qualification that Professor Toff says you need to get to, just the first criteria. So after you have a romanticization about some previous conflict and you have a charismatic person step up and ignite that with people that they've been wronged and they can fix the historical past. That's step one, according to Professor Toft, of the 3 steps it takes to activate a nation into full-blown civil war. Now, the second one is, quote, national identity is divided along some critical axes, such as race or faith. And although necessary, these first 2 features, a prior war and deepening cleavages, meaning division between national identity, are not sufficient to spark a civil war. So Professor Toft is saying you have to have, people have to have some romanticized view, both the elites and the members, of some previous conflict. And then you need to have national identity in the country split along some major issue. So we are achieving the first 2 points. We have elites, we have members talking about how things used to be better for them in America and it's not fair and they had a loss and they need to get that back. And now we see political division in America, if you've been watching any of our shows, is the worst it's ever been. So now we're at the second stage of the 3 stages, according to Professor Toft, where you have the identity split along some major issue, which is, abortion rights, gun rights, racism, etc. However, this is the key thing. Professor Toft says, although necessary, you have to have these first 2 conditions. They are not what starts the Civil War. Civil wars don't start until the 3rd condition is activated. This is very key. Although necessary, these first 2 features, a prior war, deepening cleavages, are not sufficient to spark a civil war. Professor Monica Toft quotes, with tribalism. This is the 3rd criteria. So we go from romanticized view of the past and you lost to national identity splits along something else. And then here's the 3rd criteria she's talking about. With tribalism, the creation of tribalism, you begin to seriously doubt whether other groups in the country have the larger country's or community's best interest at heart. In these environments, though, economic, social, and political elites and those they represent come to believe that anyone who disagrees with them is evil and actively working to destroy the country. Well, that's why it's very key to look at the quotes from Marjorie Taylor Greene and Senator CRUZ, because they epitomize the 3rd and critical stage that Professor Toft was talking about becoming into fruition. So here's what Marjorie Taylor Greene said on October 10th. In just 9 short months, Joe Biden and the entire Democratic Party has ruined so many people's lives and destroyed our country so badly that many Americans want a national divorce and want to split between Republican and Democratic states. That was Congress member. Now we go to just yesterday, almost literally 1 month after Marjorie Taylor Greene, with Senator CRUZ, and he says, quotes, they pack the Supreme Court, make D.C. a state, federalize elections, and expand voter regulations, there may come a point where it's hopeless. So both Senator CRUZ and Congressmember Marjorie Taylor Greene are referring to the opposition in sectarian terms. They're not just people who disagree with us. They are the bad guys who are trying to destroy America. And because they're destroying America, we have no choice but to secede. So they're so horrible. They are so dedicated to destroying America, we cannot simply postulate the idea of living in one country with them still. We have to totally sectionalize or sectarianize ourselves from them. So political division already there. People saying the past was better, at least for one group. And now we have the 3rd critical stage, according to Monica Toft, which is elites turning from opposition to tribalism, sectarianism. And we can see with Ted Cruz and his statement, if they pack the Supreme Court, make D.C. a state, and federalize elections, quotes, there may come a point where it's hopeless. Or Marjorie Taylor Greene saying the Democratic Party has ruined people's lives and destroyed our country so badly. So, elites in the Senate and in the House for the first time since 1860 are now talking about making the environment more split. This is the 3rd final criteria for America to enter into civil war. And now we have a member from both houses, and it happened this week. Marjorie Taylor Greene made her statement last month. And again, no one is going to point this out to you. Just to back all of this up, There was the University of Virginia Sabato Crystal Ball Center that talked about political division. Now, a lot of people talked about that poll and said, whoa, 52% of Trump voters support secession. And that's what it was left at. However, that poll also asked other questions, which are also not covered. One of the questions that poll asked recently was, do you view people who support the political opposition as a, quote, clear and present danger to America? 78% and 87% said yes. I'm not going to tell you who said what, whether it was Democrats that were 78 or Republicans who were 87. The point is that for one political party, 78% said yes. And for the other political party, 87% of the members said that is true. The other question that Crystal Ball University of Virginia poll asked was, do you view elected officials from the opposition as a clear and present danger? That was 80% for one party and 84% for another. So when we're looking at the rise of sectarianism and the shift or catalysm from viewing people who are just on the opposite side and don't agree with you to full-blown enemies of the state, we can see two elected officials representing both houses of Congress and somewhere on average about 3/4 of all members of the Democrats and all members of the Republicans saying, yes, we're at that sectarian stage. No one's bringing this up to you. This is quickly developing. It's happened over the last month. We look right into the abyss and make sure you get the truth. And you'll only find that here at Yes, California. Thank you. I'm your host, Marc Ruiz Evans. Check me out with the Sweaty Mexican Chronicles. It's not as serious as this, but hey, when you do this so long, you have to laugh sometimes, or else you're just sad. Thank you.